Hey there, ever wonder how your favorite teams went from playing classic ball to high press madness, Tiki-Taka wizardry and switch and play brilliance? Well, stick around because we're about to dive headfirst into the thrilling evolution of football tactics. Yup, from the good old days to the modern meta. Let's uncover how the game we love transformed. Let's jump in. Now, when we start talking about evolution, let's start from the beginning, shall we? Yup, we're rewinding the clock all the way back to the 1880s when football was still finding its groove. Back then, the name of the game was just giving the ball to your strikers and hoping for the best, like a chaotic rugby match. Now, don't take them lightly because teams back then were no pushovers. They had their bag of tricks. The go-to formations looked like a 1-1-8. Yeah, you heard it right. One defender, one midfielder and 8 attackers. Or, for the more cautious, a 1-2-7. Now, here's where the plot thickens and our Scottish heroes come into play. They decided to flip the script by introducing the radical notion of passing the ball to a teammate. Imagine that! This revolutionized the game as teams started to figure out that maybe, just maybe, working together could help them break down those stubborn defenses. Now, coming to the 1920s, things were getting even spicier on the football field. Here's the thing, there was a game changer in town, and it was all about the offside rule. It got a makeover that's closer to what we know today, and trust me, it was a big deal. This switch-up shook the football meta once again, and boom, we saw the rise of more defensive formations like the 2-3-5. Yep, you heard it right, 2 defenders, 3 midfielders and 5 attackers. But why was this a big stuff? Well, it allowed teams to have not just 1 or 2, but a whopping 5 attacking options, while still keeping things tight at the back. Imagine this, more midfield support to stop the rival team from blitzing through the defense like a bull in a china shop. As if this wasn't enough, in the mid-1920s, teams took it up a notch by developing a structured approach. They'd have one group of players focused on the attack and another set ready to defend as their lives depended on it. How's that? Let's fast forward to the 1930s, alright? Here's where the Austrian national team comes in, aka the Wonder Team. These guys were dominating like hell. They were the OG modern football wizards, playing with a style that wouldn't feel out of place today. Their secret sauce? Quick passing that left opponents dizzy and confused. But here's the thing, they were the founders of the false 9. You see, back in the day, strikers would typically cling to the defender's shoulder. But these Austrian maestros? Nope. Their striker would drop deep, snatch the ball outside the opponent's area and leave the centre-backs scratching their heads, wondering who to mark. And then there's the legendary WM formation. Imagine this, alright? Strikers shaping a W up front and defenders forming an M at the back. It was the perfect blend of attack and defense. Teams could flood the front with players while still keeping their castle guarded at the rear. Oh, and this is where they started naming positions with numbers and names. Now let's jump into the 1960s. Now this was a decade that not only grooved to the beat, but also saw football make its dazzling debut on TV screens. Yup, football fever was catching and the match of the week burst onto the scene in 1964. And guess what? The 1966 World Cup had something mind-blowing. The first ever televised game in colour. But here's the scoop on the pitch. The 60s were all about power football. Think burly, brawny players dominating the defensive line, leaving attacking teams with about as much room as a sardine in a tin can. Take this, the catenaccio, a tactic that was as solid as a brick wall, cooked up by the genius Inter Milan coach Herrera. Now, the word catenaccio literally means door bolt, and this style of play was all about fortifying the goal and then hitting back with lightning-quick counter-attacks when the opposition got too greedy in attack. And let's not forget the sweeper, a player whose job was to sweep away any threats from behind the back 3. Now, we have 3 decades, the 1970s, 80s and the 90s. What do you think? Expecting anything unusual? You see, the 70s were a time of thrilling change in football. Brazil strutted onto the world stage with a samba flair, rocking the 4-2-4 formation like nobody's business. Picture this, Pelé, Jairzinho, Gerson and Tostão dazzling with attacking fullbacks that created chaos in the wings. The midfield was a playground, with 2 holding maestros freeing up the back four to move forward and unleash 6 attacking powerhouses. But the real MVPs of the 70s were none other than Ajax, managed by the genius Rinus Michels, and featuring the legendary Johan Cruyff. They played a brand of football known as total football, where players could seamlessly switch positions while maintaining tactical structure. Defensively, they pressed high and swarmed opponents, leaving no room for substantial plays. Now fast forward to the 80s and guess what? We're back to a defensive meta like the 60s. Teams were like fortresses, hard to break down and deadly in front of goal. Argentina and Germany thrived with their compact setups, taking no unnecessary risks. But let's not forget the stars of the era, Diego Maradona, Michel Platini and Marco van Basten. In club football, AC Milan under Arrigo Sacchi took the world by storm with a 4-4-2 formation. They perfected the offside trap, squeezing opponents into a tight 25-meter space, making it impossible to breathe. With high-energy football, they pressed relentlessly, leaving opponents in despair. Offensively, they had a false nine and pounced on unprepared rivals with lightning counterattacks, dominating domestic and European cups. Now tighten up because we're entering the 90s. This is where France and Brazil were the kings of the castle. Brazil stuck to a 4-2-2-2 formation, reminiscent of the 80s, while France danced to the tune of the 4-3-2-1, also known as a Christmas tree formation. It was all about blending attack and defense, and in club football, Sir Alex Ferguson's Manchester United epitomised this mentality. United's 4-4-2 formation, in reality, played more like a 4-4-1-1. The two strikers, often Cole and York, had one dropping deep and the other pressing high. Fullbacks provided width and an abundance of attacking options. Sir Alex's tactics also featured rapid switching of play to exploit space in the opposite wing. Out of possession, they pressed hard, forcing opponents into costly errors. In fact, the 90s was a time of great football evolution, where the blend of attack and defense ruled the roost. Sir Alex's United, in particular, shone brightly, clinching numerous Premier League titles, including the legendary treble in 1999. Anyways, let's jump into the next millennia, the 2000s. Here's where Manchester United continued to flex its football muscles. A revolution was brewing, and it had a name: Jose Mourinho. This guy changed the game, not just in England but across the whole of Europe. Mourinho's secret sauce: he was an extra man in midfield, which was like having an ace up his sleeve. He ditched the traditional 4-4-2 and embraced a 4-3-3 formation. Picture it: one defensive midfielder, a Claude Makelele type, and 2 attacking midfielders with the likes of Frank Lampard playing higher up the pitch, connecting with the lone striker, often Didier Drogba. But here's the magic: Chelsea and other Mourinho-led teams, such as Porto, Inter and Real Madrid, played with a direct approach. They'd often go long, hitting the striker, catching opponents off guard, and leaving loads of space between the lines. Lampard or the attacking midfielder would exploit the space behind the defense. With the striker holding up play, wingers made darting runs behind the opposition, creating tons of attacking options and freedom. Now, hold on, because Chelsea, under Mourinho, wasn't just a scoring machine. They were an impenetrable fortress. They had the best defensive season to date, conceding only 15 goals and losing just 1 game. Now, coming to the final parts, you see, over the years, we've witnessed football transform at breakneck speed, with teams adopting faster and more direct tactics that have left us in awe. The last decade in particular has been a roller coaster of excitement, with an ever-expanding arsenal of tactics that have brought success to teams worldwide. The game has become a mesmerizing chessboard, where teams adapt, improvise, and conquer in countless variations, leaving us on the edge of our seats. But now, let's fast forward to the future. With tactics from 40 to 50 years ago making a comeback on the grand stage, we can't help but wonder, what's next? Let me ask you, what will be the game in the coming decade? You know what to do. Do drop your views in the comment section below, and we'll be back with another exciting video soon. Until then, stay tuned.